Good evening and welcome to the Town of Derry Planning Board meeting for September 18th, 2024. We start our meetings with a Pledge of Allegiance, so if you would rise and join me. We'll go over some housekeeping and administrative matters first regarding the meeting, which is in person, and we also voluntarily allow remote participation. Any member of the planning board participates remotely, vote shall be by roll call. In order to attend this meeting remotely using a computer or smart device, visit www.zoom.us. And enter the meeting ID 754-663-912. You may also call in on your phone for audio only. Phone number 646-558-8656, and the meeting ID is the same, 754-663-912. If you are calling in by phone, use a *9 key to raise your hand to be recognized, and a *6 key to toggle your mute and unmute once you have been recognized. The emergency exit is at the rear of the room. In the event of an alarm activation, there's also an additional exit to my right, to your left. Elevators don't operate during alarm activation, so if that is the case and you need assistance, please wait for first responders to provide that assistance for you. I'd like to introduce the staff and board members who are present tonight. To my far right is our planning director, Ms. Robidoux.
Good evening.
In the rear, taking notes, is our secretary, Ms. Wilson.
Carvalho, good evening.
Oh, Carvalho. Where, Caroline? We lost Caroline?
Yeah, Caroline, no.
Oh, okay. So Ms. Carvalho is actually the clerk, not the secretary, and she is recording the notes. Town Administrative Representative, Mr. Chase.
Good evening.
Member, Mr. Healy.
Good evening.
Town Council Liaison, Mr. Grenice.
Good evening.
Vice Chair, Mr. O'Connor.
Good evening, all.
To my far left is our town cable TV guru, Mr. Preventure.
Good evening.
The Engineering Department's representative, Mr. LaRue.
Good evening.
Member, Mr. Fishman.
Good evening.
Member, Mr. Feinauer.
Good evening.
Secretary, Mr. Malaby.
Hello.
And both, I think, Ms. Lavoie and Mr. Myers are absent tonight. We don't have an alternate to sit for them. So I will be talking about that under chair comments.
Okay.
First item on the agenda is escrow, and I don't see that we have any.
No, none.
Excellent. We will move on to minutes. We have the approval of the September 4th, 2004 Planning Board minutes. Has everyone had a chance to read those?
Mr. Chair, seeing nobody coming forward, then I'll move to accept them as written.
Second.
Moved by O'Connor, seconded by Malaby to approve the minutes of September 4 as written. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Any abstentions?
Abstain.
So Mr. Feinauer and Mr. Fishman are abstaining. We also have the sidewalk notes from September 11th, 2024. Have we also had a chance to review those? Any errors or omissions?
I see nothing coming forward, Mr. Chair. Then I move to accept them as written.
Second.
Moved by O'Connor, seconded by Malaby to accept the sidewalk notes for September 11th as written. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay. Any abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Mr. Healy and Mr. Fishman
Abstain.
and Mr. Feinauer are abstaining. Now we move on to correspondence. I believe we have one item of correspondence.
Yes, it gives me great pleasure to say we do have one item of correspondence, and it is a thank you letter from a local resident, George Cioris. And he's just thanking us for recognizing him as last meeting.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Other business. we have a review of the proposed changes to Cumberland Farms, 22 East Broadway, parcel ID 30065, pursuant to LDCR Section 170-83A.
Okay, thank you. Our land development control regulations have architectural design requirements for different districts. This applies to the traditional business overlay district, which has a very high level of compliance with the regulation. Cumberland Farms is proposing some slight alterations to their existing facade. The proposed work in review does not appear to substantially change the existing facade of the building, and you have in your packets an outline of what they are proposing. It's really just new vinyl. They're going to be replacing existing signs with similar or exact. One of the differences is the bollards will be painted black, where right now they're white. They're doing some painting to the building, not changing the color, and painting the edges of sidewalk, fixing some curb, and they'll address any outstanding landscaping issues or where there's deficiencies in their current landscaping. So it's recommended that the board accept the proposed alterations as presented and, find that they do not change the existing character of the district.
What is the board's pleasure? Mr.
I
Grenice?
have a question. Is there anybody here from Cumberland Farms? To answer a question?
I don't believe so.
My question is, it's a busy place. I'm glad that they're doing some work on it downtown, but they're painting the bollards black. So my question would be, at nighttime, people aren't going to see it. I don't know if there was any reflective on it.
We could ask that they add some.
So, yeah, I would like to see some reflective. I think the white ones you see at night, I think there's reflective around them. My fear would be at nighttime, because they are open 24 hours, that someone could drive right into that or walk into it.
So is that something we can get resolution on tonight? Is it someone here to represent them, or?
There isn't, but where this has to go to the planning board for review, and the board can put conditions on their approval for this, I think that the board would be within its purview to say, we're okay with what you're proposing, but you're going to need to add some reflective material or tape to those bollards if you want to paint them black.
Okay. I mean, I have sort of the same concern. That satisfies my concern. Or they could just leave them white. Their choice.
Okay.
Yeah, either way. I mean, I don't know why they're going to play in black, but maybe that's a new scheme. I don't know. But on the plan they showed us, it still shows white,
It does.
so.
Other questions or discussion? Mr. Grease, would you like to make a motion with that condition included?
All right, so I move that we accept the proposed alterations as presented for the Cumberland Farms PID 3006522 East Broadway, and find that the proposed changes do not change the existing characters of the district. Also, condition that the bollards, they say they're gonna be painted black, that we would like, they need to have some sort of reflective on it. And also, if they are painting the bollards, I don't know what they're called, over by the gas pumps, I don't know if they're painting them black too, but if they are painting them black, they have to have some sort of reflective on it for safety.
Second?
So moved by Grenice, seconded by Malby. Any discussion? Not, I will poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer?
Yes.
Mr. Malby?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Next item on the agenda, Planning Director updates.
Okay. The changes that the board had proposed for the floodplain update they were approved by town council, and they're now effective. So we have a new zoning ordinance. If any member of the board needs a hard copy, if you could email either myself or Caroline and let us know, we can get you one. Otherwise, it is available digitally on the town website. Next meeting, October 1st, I think it's October 1st. We've got two plans on tap. There's a design review for a proposed subdivision off of Frost Road. And so that's really non-binding discussion with the board, but it is noticed. And then there's also a resubmission for Mount Pleasant Street for a subdivision that you've seen prior. Also, we wanted to get on there a workshop with the board to start talking about goals and potential zoning changes. There's some zoning changes we might want to start looking at sooner rather than later. But we can start creating a list and start prioritizing those so that staff has direction, where you want us to put our efforts on that.
Okay, thank you. And under chairman comments, we do need alternates, so anyone out there in the viewing audience, if you are interested in helping your town with matters of planning, please go onto the town's website where the board and committee volunteers submission site is located, and let us know you're interested, because we could use 2 more alternates. Thank you. We now move into public hearing phase. First one is JAL LLC, Sepia Realty Trust, parcel ID 14013-001 and 11042-046 Daniel Road and 14 Owl Street. It is a lot line adjustment, and if you would review that for us.
Sure, thank you. So JAL has been developing a large subdivision off of Daniel Road. The board recently approved phases 3 and 4 of the project. They're requesting a lot line adjustment between 2 lots to allow further development of the larger parcels at the end of the currently approved cul-de-sac known as Daniel Road. Parcel 14013-001 has 2 acres, and it's located at the end of Daniel. 1142-46 is currently developed and known as 14 Owl Street. That has about 4.5 acres right now. The lot line adjustment will remove the western property line of the Daniel Road parcel, increasing that lot size to 5.3 acres. A new lot line will be created to the north of the existing home at 14 Owl Street, and that lot will be reduced to 1.34 acres, which does meet current zoning. A portion of Daniel Road lot is in the LMDR zone, which requires a minimum of 2 acres plus 150 feet of frontage. The lot line that's planned to be eliminated was the boundary for the zoning district. 14 Owl Street is in the MDR zone, which is 1 acre plus 125 feet of frontage. I need to explain that with this change, the zoning boundary itself does not move. It will remain as an invisible line through the middle of that lot. Any future subdivision of parcel 141301 will need to show the location of the zoning boundary, and the lots created on the MDR portion will need to meet the MDR zoning requirements. If you look at the plan, right now, anything north of 1413-1 along the edge of the cul-de-sac, those are actually located in the LMDR zone. That is an item that we'll need to have corrected on the plat before it gets recorded. For some reason, it was inaccurately noted as MDR. The other item is that traditionally or historically what happens when you have a lot that has a split zone like that, you note the 2 portions of the lot. So the, let's call it the right side where the drainage easement is, that will remain LMDR, but because the lot line is changing and the larger portion is in MDR, any lots created, if any are created, there will take on MDR characteristics. Following up on that, there are a couple of waiver requests. One is for topography and one is for HIS mapping. We'd recommend that you approve the plan as presented with the suggested conditions of approval after discussion.
All right, so, Mr. Falco, do you understand Ms. Robideau's comments about Scribner's issues on the plat?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, great. So at this point, we'd look for a motion to accept jurisdiction.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept jurisdiction of the lot line adjustment plan before the board for JAL LLC PID 14013-001 Danielle Road and Sapia Realty Trust, Anna Lemieux, trustee, PID 11042-046, 14 L Street.
Second.
Moved by O'Connor, seconded by Malmy to accept jurisdiction. I will poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Greaves?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Yes.
Feinauer?
Yes.
Mr. Malamy?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. On the matter of regional impact, we need to have a, no, we
No.
don't need to have a
There's not
motion.
one. So, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to open the public hearing then.
Second.
Okay. Motion and second to open the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Public hearing is open.
Good
Any-
evening.
So
For
why
the
don't you
record-
give us your intro, and then we'll invite folks up to ask questions.
Indeed. So good evening. My name's Tim Peliquin, for the record, licensed land surveyor, company Promise Land Survey. Elizabeth, your new planning director, welcome, gave a great synopsis, so I don't have to belabor that long. One thing I will add, so it's simply a a lot line adjustment at this time. One big reason that is not stated on this is that you'll see a large detention pond, known as an access and drainage easement. The access is to the drainage easement. I just want that to be noted. So basically, there's a lot of drainage coming into this lot. There's a lot of steep slopes. And the idea is, by doing this lot line adjustment, it's going to allow them to regrade portions of this back lot that's going to make it much more, a much better lot than that 2.09 acre lot currently existed. So that's a part of it, certainly, is for grading purposes for American Excavating to do their work there. So I just want that to be noted. And it's relative, with some minor changes that were requested by the planning department. We have no issues with anything else. And I'll pause and answer any questions the board or perhaps members of the public would have at this time.
So if you would just review the rationale for the waivers. I know staff report room recommends approving them, but we have started to ask the applicants to actually tell us why they're asking for the waivers, even if they're very straightforward.
Sure. High-intensity soils is generally for septic systems, particular, to make sure that the lots qualify or are ample enough area to allow that. I would tell you these are on town water. That is a big part of it, where a well radius will take out a large part of a particular lot. So high-intensity soils will not change a thing on this, either lot. And so one existing, all the improvements are already there. It has its own septic system. The new lot, 5.3 acres, there's ample area for a septic system. And it's already on town water. So that would be the reason on high-intensity soils. And then the other for topography, such as a lot line adjustment, it's somewhat unnecessary. We could have provided a topographic plan, but it wouldn't change anything what's being proposed here. And I will say that the Registry of Deeds particularly Rockingham County Registry of Deeds, you cannot record plans with topography on them. So it's an exercise that's unnecessary. So that's why we'd ask for those two waivers.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone present in the room who has comments or questions on this item? Anyone online?
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved by Healy, seconded by Malaby to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Public hearing is closed. We are now going to talk about the waivers. There were two of them. What is the board's pleasure?
All right, Mr. Chairman, what's the board's pleasure? Should I do them together or separate?
Is there any objection to doing them together?
I see no
Hearing
objections.
no, go ahead.
All right, so I move the grant waivers from LDCR Section 170-24A, Point 2, to not provide 2-foot contours on the plan as topography has been provided on previously approved plats for this development. After review of the waiver request, the board finds specific circumstances relative to the plan or conditions of the land in such plan indicate that the waiver will properly carry out the spirit and intent of the regulations. I also move the grant waiver from LDCR Section 17024A.12 to not provide HIS mapping as map 11, lot 42-46 and currently serviced by an on-site well and septic. Map 14, lot 13-1 will be served by municipal water and on-site septic. After review of the waiver request, the board finds specific circumstances relative to the plan or conditions of the land in such plan indicate the waiver will properly carry out the spirit and intent of the regulations.
Second.
Moved by Grenice, seconded by Malaby. I will poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer?
Yes.
Mr. Malaby?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. As to findings of fact,
The board, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion. The board finds the proposed plan does not alter existing conditions which would affect access to the lots, ensuring the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood remains unchanged as a result of the adjustment of the lot line.
Second.
all right, so Mr. Malaby has moved to make those findings of fact, seconded by Mr. Grenice. We'll poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer?
Yes.
Mr. Malaby?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. And on the approval, you might mention the small changes that Ms. Robideau requested on the plat as a condition of, an additional condition of approval. Who would like to make the motion? Mr. Healy, would you?
Yeah. Mr. Chair, after review and deliberation of the lot line adjustment plan application for JL LLC PID 14013-001, Daniel Road in Sapia Realty Trust, Anna Lemieux trustee PID 11042-046 14 L Street, the board finds that the applicant has satisfied the general requirements of the land development control regulations, or in cases where the regulation cannot be met, has satisfied the waiver requirements. Therefore, the motion is to approve pursuant to RSA 676:4, Roman numeral 3, expedited review with the following conditions. Subject to owner's signature, subject to on-site inspection by the town's engineer, establish escrow for the setting of bounds or certify that the bounds have been set, note approved waiver on the plan, update note 5 on the plan of reference to indicate August 2024, recording of the plan as well as the September recording of the corrective cover sheet, retain the location of the zoning boundary on the plan, correct the zoning district designation for map 14 lot 13 in its sublots to reflect LMDR rather than MDR, obtain written approval from the planning director designee that the GIS disk is received and is operable and it complies with LDCR section 170-24.c or 170-61.c. Conditions precedent shall be met within 6 months. Submission of the appropriate recording fees payable to the Rockingham County Registry of Deeds. This includes the $25 L-chip fee, recording fees for the Mylar, and a notice of decision. And then what Ms. Robidoux had mentioned earlier.
So your
I think I
concerns already included in these conditions?
They are.
Okay, great.
Second.
So moved by Healy, seconded by Grenice to grant conditional approval. Is there any discussion? Poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer?
Yes.
Mr. Malaby?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
very
your
much.
time. We appreciate it.
Next item on the agenda is a continuation of an application from September 4th, 2024. And this was a parcel for which we also conducted a site walk. It is Humphrey Road LLC, Timothy J. Butterfield, June 1997, Irrevocable Trust, Timothy J. Butterfield trustee, Sharon L. Butterfield, June 1997 Revocable Trust, Sharon L. Butterfield trustee, parcel ID 05062, 05063, 05064, 05065-001, 1, 2, 3, and 4 Humphrey Road. There's a site plan for a mixed-use development in the West Running Brook District.
Okay, thank you. So at the last meeting, the planning board heard from the applicant's engineering and legal counsel with regard to the proposed mixed-use development on Humphrey Road. The application was accepted, which began the review clock, and it was determined the project did not have regional impact. To have a better understanding of the drainage and connectivity issues, the board scheduled a site walk for Wednesday, September 11th to view the site in field conditions in person. You have the notes from that. They're part of the packet. As you're aware, this project has been in development for multiple years, and there's been a concerted effort between town staff and the development team to ensure the proposed drainage system works and does not adversely affect the site, adjacent properties, or West Running Brook. On Friday, September 13th, I met at the West Running Brook School with the superintendent of schools, the facilities director, business administrator, Principal Fox, Dr. Butterfield, Mr. LaRue, Shane Genren, and Joe Griffin from the development project team. We viewed the area proposed for the bike path extension, and consensus was to follow the layout as described during the site walk with a 6-foot wide asphalt path that avoids utility and drainage conflicts. The path will transition to a 10-foot wide path as the trail nears the playground area and will terminate near where the existing chain link fence comes to a T intersection. There's an attached summary of the meeting in your packet. Projects in the West Running Brook District are approved by conditional use permit. The reference is in the zoning ordinance, section 165-32-4F. RSA 67421 provides that innovative land use controls may be administered through the use of a conditional use permit when the planning board has been given such authority under the zoning ordinance. Note that an additional waiver request has been added to the application per the recommendation of Wright Pierce during their review. Staff comments and concerns remain as noted in the staff report prepared for the September 4th meeting. I would note that there's been a request by the applicant to, if the board grants conditional approval, to allow the applicant at least 12 months to meet those conditions. Your suggested motion currently says 6. And as noted during the last meeting, water and sewer connection fees will apply per the 2011 water and sewer bond resolutions made by town council. That is not a condition of approval suggested currently, and I would recommend that that be added. And I think, there's now 10 waiver requests. The board was able to hear about those at the last meeting. The additional one is to not require the bottom of the proposed infiltration system to be a minimum of 2 feet above the seasonal high water table. There's, in the updated waiver letter, there's an explanation as to why, and I'm sure Mr. Genren will also speak to that. Your list of required approvals are noted, and it's recommended that the board review and discuss the waiver request. There's an extensive list of proposed findings of fact. The board may want to review these and determine if those findings should be voted on separately or in some cases grouped together. The proposed conditions of approval are just suggestions for the board and should be amended as applicable based on the discussion this evening. And you have Attorney John Cronin and Shane Genren.
All right, so thank you. I'm going to ask Mr. LaRue to review for us his memo of August 22nd regarding conditions for this application. And if you don't have it in front of you, I got a copy, but could you update us as to whether all of these have been addressed in the conditions and waivers, or are there outstanding items in your opinion?
I don't have it in front of me, but I already
Pass this down?
I do recall most of the items. They were related to finishing several profile sheets, making sure that the information was all completed as far as elevations, materials, sizes, and that's over a course of multiple sheets. The fourth bullet is the item with the bike path that was discussed at the site walk. And I think we've come to a consensus on that with our meeting with the school representatives, along with the applicant. And that's still in play. Height of the object in the previous bullet was addressed. Then back to the roadway improvement plan, that's also a moving target because they don't have their approval yet from the NHDOT Bureau, District 5. And then the sewer use permit, that's part of the conditions as laid out for you for this evening as well. So most of these items are still applicable, but they're on various sheets and are on various items. So I would include that as part of like a addendum to the
All right, so we'll make sure that we
Items.
reference your memo in
Yes.
one of the conditions then.
Yep.
Okay,
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Ms. Robideau and Ms. LaRue. My name is John Cronin, for the record. Representing the applicant with me is Shane Gendron. Mr. and Mrs. Butterfield are here, as is Joe Griffin, the project engineer. So if we need some technical information, we'll call him up so he can give you the specifics on that. Just to review where we were, we did the presentation last time, reviewed the plan, the layout of this mixed-use project, which is, I think, been in the oven here for close to 5 years. And due to some constructive criticism from the various review committees, staff, this board, in the initial phases, had some really good design suggestions, all of which have been incorporated in the plan and have made, in my view, a drastic improvement. I'd like to address initially the outstanding issues. I think Mr. LaRue talked about the bike path. There was some debate at the last meeting whether 6 or 10 feet was appropriate. We recognize that the general standard, if conditions allowed, would be 10. But based on meetings with the school department, was satisfied with 6 and the alignment with the existing road, that everyone seems to be on the same page with 6 feet at that particular area. It would taper back out later. With respect to the sidewalks, there were some questions about the sidewalks throughout the TRCs and during the design review process. This thing moved forward with the thought that the sidewalks wouldn't be required, particularly on 28, where the DOT generally does not want people brought to 28, and then after discussions with the school superintendent, who said he absolutely didn't want people being brought out to 28. And then you look at that busy corner, which there'll be turning movements and roadway improvements to align, combined with the fact that the sidewalks would create, a huge expense and design change to the drainage, which, with the help of Mr. LaRue and Joe, that's been manipulated a number of different times to get it right. So each side of Humphrey Road drains independently and adequately without dependence on the other parcel. As far as the engineering comments, we had not addressed it at the time of the original meeting. Mr. Griffin has worked on each of those and prepared a written response and sent it back to the engineering company. We're satisfied, with a condition that we meet the requirements and satisfy those engineering details, some of which we'll address when we get to the waiver items. I think some of the more important ones are addressed there. In the staff report, there's a mention to talk about phasing. We did discuss it in some detail at the last meeting, but I'll just review it so we're clear on it. The phasing is part of the AOT application and permit, which has been received. So our preference would be to stick with that rather than go back in and amend the AOT. The north side parcel initially, in that phase, it would be the entrance area and infrastructure that would be done, which typically requires the best management practices for sill fencing and protection and drainage while that work gets going and is going forward. You want to minimize that to the best of your ability. You can only open so much, close it, and then move on. Once that was completed, the work would move to the 28th side of the north parcel, where you have the restaurant pad and the 14,000 square foot building. While I'm at that building, I'll just note one of the comments in the engineering report called out the distinction between 14,000 and 16,000 square feet. The pad is 16,000 square feet, but there is common space stairways in the lower level to get up to the second floor. So the usable area for the purposes of the calculation is 14,000 square feet when you back out the hallways and the staircases and things. That's why that distinction is there. Once that was completed and the large apartment building, then move on to the townhouses in the rear. After the meeting, we looked at it and there was some good comments. Wouldn't it be wise to do the townhouses first? And I think our response to that will be, it will really be market dependent. Whatever the case, phase one is going to have to be phase one. And, we certainly could work with staff and come back before you if necessary, if there's some modifications to that phasing. But our priority in doing it is compliance with AOT, best management practices, and drainage and siltation protection. We also believe that by doing that front pad.
Excuse me, on September 4th, there was a nice, I think it was color-coded diagram of the phasing. Can you tell me what sheet that's on?
We might be able to pull it up.
It's the last sheet.
It's towards the back, I think it's like page 86.
86.
I think you guys have them all. Probably.
Ah, yeah, there it is. So, for the board, the brightly colored diagram on page 86 is the phasing plan that we're discussing.
Look like
Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
Excuse me?
Sorry for the interruption.
Oh, no, this is the plan, and it kind of lays out, and there is a color-coded key up in the top right that show how it would work. There's some questions about the purple or pink area, which is a separate lot, kind of standalone. I think that could work simultaneously with the others if the appropriate timing was correct. But more than likely, the way that it would work would be that green area would come in and go first in terms of phasing.
So with respect to the phasing plan, will you be establishing escrow on a per-phase basis or for the whole development?
Well, in terms of, that's going to be a staff question, and I think it varies depending on it when you look at what the security is and how you go on and do that. But certainly that's something that we don't have a lot of say in. We certainly can have a conversation, but whatever the staff decides within reason, that would be what we would have to do.
Okay, thank you.
In terms of the waivers, I think one of the first ones we talked about was the parking. We asked for a waiver for 12 parking spaces. The contention being that pretty typical in mixed use where you have a balance of housing and commercial space, that there's offsetting demands on the parking. Certainly different times, different transit and different trips, and the number of spaces that we're seeking is relatively small in the total number of spaces provided. Also, one of the things that we didn't discuss is that your regulations are pretty generous in terms of parking requirements. You require 1.5 per bedroom, so these are 2 units, so that would be 3 per apartment. Perhaps some people will have 3 cards, but certainly not all of them, and probably not the majority, so that there would be ample excess parking under your regulations to meet that particular demand. It also contemplates 100% occupancy. I think the real-life experience with projects like that it's rare or almost never that you would have 100% of the units in the commercial space occupied at the same time. Some of your residents in the apartments going to be going to boyfriends, girlfriends, friends for the weekend, maybe to the beach. Others may choose to vacation or spend some time in the winter in Florida and at the beach and the lake in the summer. So when you look at the overall dependent on it. We think we have sufficient parking, and for the Butterfields and whoever may build this out, is, you're not going to make this kind of investment, and your bank's probably not going to let you do it if they have any shortcomings with respect to parking. And Steve Pernaugh, who you probably heard from many times here, a pretty well-regarded traffic engineer, he often talks about parking as self-correcting. If there's parking issues and people can't get parking, they're not going to rent. And if they come in and there's no spaces or there's few spaces, they're going to go have lunch or dinner someplace else. So in terms of health, safety, and welfare, we don't think that waiver request is unreasonable, and it meets your standards for a waiver.
So would the board prefer to deal with the waivers one at a time, given there's a number of them and the explanations are a little involved? Yeah, so why don't we have a motion and a vote on the first waiver request now that we've heard it?
Did you reopen the public hearing? I'm sorry.
Did we
Do you
actually,
need to make a
we
motion
close
just
the public
to?
hearing before we continued?
No, we didn't close it, but I don't know if you need
I
to
think for the record, we probably should.
just acknowledge.
All right,
For the
so,
record, it is. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Okay,
Second.
so we have a motion from Grenice, seconded by Malaby, to open the public hearing. And this is a continuation of the hearing that occurred on September 4th. So now can we,
Well, you vote.
so are there folks who would like an alibi or second opportunity to ask questions or comment?
Yes.
Shouldn't we vote?
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay? No, okay, it's open. Since we're opening the public hearing, then I think we need to perhaps hear from the public before we go down the waivers. So is there anyone who would like to address this application,
Stay there, but
either in the room or online?
maybe Shane, you want to go to here so Joe can sit. Awesome. Yeah. Might be. If you'd like to sit, Shane can come to the. Yeah, and then, yeah, maybe Shane can come to the mic.
My voice is,
Here, you want to sit down?
yeah, my voice is damaged because I had a stroke on Mother's Day. Since then, I have a
can't hear
pacemaker.
So can you get a little closer to the microphone?
My throat, I'll have to speak very slowly because I have trouble pronouncing words now because of my health condition. I'm the joining over of 10 Healthy Road and a red thread between us. And my primary concern is, when I bought my property, the town bought the rest of that acreage to build up parks, on-board parks. The state stopped a building because of the wetlands. So you couldn't build anything, rest of the parking lots they already built. So all the property by my property, go with his property, is in that west end that the state stopped the town from building on. And as a result, what they didn't do, unfortunately, didn't do anything about mitigating what happened when they built the plant. The flow of water changed because of what they did on the park. And that comes on my property and on Westby, and actually is on my bond, was built in 1870. It's kind of down my backyard, and it's sloping. And what used to be my neighbor's land before, they used to have horse toes on a property where it's now burnt down. It's total burnt now. So the thing is, the other side, if the state stopped the town from building, they would have the same concern about the other side building to that old problem with the wetlands. And I got some background in that, and I was chief of the Corps of Engineers. I was also attorney for the state of California. I've dealt with a lot of these problems. And one of the bigger problems, people forget that when you take out land and build on it, the water that used to go into the ground doesn't. So the additional flow of water, not only being people using the property, the road isn't going back to the ground anymore. So a lot of groundwater increases as well. And that's actually what happened when they built the park. They didn't do anything else, but the additional water that used to get around there now comes across and comes down to my line. And then on their side, it'll be the same thing. So actually, if they have to build on that line, just holding the water and releasing it later isn't going to solve the problem. Because even now, when the water comes down from the school, it comes down our street and it's going to cross Humphrey Road, just for a little bit for the schools. So if they build all these projects, cover all that ground, what's going to happen to that groundwater as well as what they're using for the living in the buildings themselves. So you got two things. One, you got you drain it from the people living there, and the other is the groundwater that no one has to remember anymore. So I would think that they would have to put a storm drain, not a storm, but a sewer or storm drain all the way down past the back property, back in the river, rather than just try to spot it out there and release it at different times. That's not going to solve the problem for all the extra water that's going to come down there. That's my main concern. It probably won't be in my lifetime, so I'm 86 years old, but it's still going to be somebody, and in fact, it's going to happen. If that might, that farm, and better, the water in my park gets about it, it's going to rest of my property as well. It's going to back up in the rest of the park. So that has to not be held and let out back into the stream. It has to be back from there, groundwater at all, be able to flow that down past Rumford Road to where it goes to the seas. It can't just keep it in. And I've done things with holding plants, with a military base with the 3 separates to slow it down. But you can't do that here. You can't go back and under the stairs. It's got to go beyond that. So I would like that to be, getting town water, fine. If you like it to the sewer, I know, but the right order is going to have to be from their property, across Happy Way, down someplace below into where it is. It can't just be flowing back in it by any at all because it'll flood things. That's my concern. I love my neighbor, great neighbor, they're good friends. It's a wonderful thing he wants to build, but that's my main concern.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
We do have some attendees who have joined by phone. We may want to remind them of how to control their, raise their hand.
All right, so we will try to get your question answered, so we won't drop that, but let everyone who is on the phone know that it is *9 in order to raise your hand in order to request to be recognized, and once you are recognized, then it is *6 to unmute your phone so that you can talk to us over the Zoom meeting. Mr. Engineer, can you attempt to answer the question?
So I think the question was relative to our drainage and how we're going to recharge water on the site, if I understand the question correctly. One of the things that we did with this site was actually submit the AOT application to DES, and we've since received approval. So basically, I could have Joe come up here and speak for hours on end about the drainage. Mark LaRue spent a lot of time reviewing it, but we have to handle all our stormwater on site, and we have to match our pre and our post development peak flows, and all that is reviewed by your staff. It is also reviewed by State of New Hampshire DES. DES has given us an approval on that. So I think that's probably why there was pretty light comments from Wright Pierce as far as the drainage was concerned. because we've already met the AOT requirements. If you had any specific questions about how the systems will work, I'm more than happy to bring Joe Griffin up here. He's using a lot of infiltration techniques. There's some gravel wetlands. There's some different types of underground storage and infiltration that he's using that I'm more than happy to have Joe come up and go in detail with that.
Okay, thank you. Let's give someone in cyberspace a chance. Is there anyone with their hand raised?
Seeing no one rise at this time, Mr. Chair?
Okay, anyone else in the room have comments or questions? Please come forward and give your name, address for the record. So you can use this microphone over here, so you can get your answers quickly without having to do too much musical chairs.
Chair, very briefly, it's been brought to my attention that some folks are having trouble joining the Zoom online versus by phone. I will say that it is indeed helpful that folks call in per the protocol to our clerk to resolve the issue that folks might be having.
All right, so I've been advised that there's some technical difficulties with the computer-based Zoom attendance. And if you can't get into the meeting on your computer to see the video and hear the audio, then call in on the phone. And that number is 646-558-8656. And the meeting ID is the same for both the phone and the video. That's 754-663-912.
Dave, it's a 603 number.
Hmm?
So can I just give the number? So people,
That's not what it says on the screen.
no, it says if you have problems calling during the scheduled meeting time, contact 603-845-5585.
That rings this phone here.
Yeah, so that's what Owen said.
Anybody having problems joining by on Zoom, please call the support line and we're gonna get that worked out for them.
Oh, all right.
It's functional, there are no technical difficulties.
You're going to talk them through it. Okay. So you want to read that number again?
603-845-5585. 603-845-5585.
Okay, I didn't know we had a, I didn't know we had a tech hotline here. That's cool. All right, go ahead with your question.
My name is John Clardy, live at 11 Garvin Road in Derry. I've been living in Derry for 20 years. My wife Colleen, my son Evan, my daughter Allison. And we chose to live in Derry because of the school system. It's a great family town. Lots of great people, lots of good services. We basically would like to see the town prosper and not lose its reputation for good schools, but also with the high taxes, I feel we need to broaden our tax base to either reduce or help our taxes from going up. I feel this project with the mixed-use zone will go a long way in generating a lot more taxes without unreasonably stressing the schools. Looking at the plan, just the children generated by this development project was very minimal, like I think it said 7 children. So very low impact to the school system and huge tax generation. So we'd like to see the good quality development in the town as well. Obviously Salem is booming, Londonderry has done a lot. It'd be nice to see Derry have a little bit more, that we're not traveling to other towns for small business things, restaurants and such. Also, we have relatives getting older. Would like to see them have a place to come closer to us, not necessarily need a car as well. That this housing created in this district would provide that. The architecture of the buildings, I think, are incredible. I think it would be great for the town look. Especially with a lot of the volume being beyond Route 28, what you see along the face, I think looks amazing. The big commercial building looking like a barn, and the restaurant looking like a farmhouse. I think it's a good country, touch for the town versus seeing like a strip mall go in. So we call Derry home. We'd like to see this development go through as a great asset. Yeah, taxes are high in Derry, but we knew that going into it. We chose it for the good schools, but given the taxes that the town would get for this, I think that would go a long way in helping to keep our property taxes down. That's why I'm in favor of this. Try to keep Derry that big, small town that I like to call it. So yeah, minimal school impact, close to the center of town, bike paths. Thank you to the planning department, and I hope this project gets approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Laurie Fleming. I live at 3 South Range Road, Derry, and I've lived here for over 30 years. I'm really excited to see this happening. I find myself lately being in Salem a lot at the Tuscan Village area. I find myself over in the Woodmont area in Londonderry, using the facilities, the shops, and I think it's a really great thing when you're talking about a community. Part of a good community is bringing amenities and places of social connection for people to get together and be able to celebrate your town together, get to know each other. And I love the fact that this is all kind of going around a bike path as well, so that people can actually get there in a different way without having to drive. If you have ever walked the rail trail or used the bike trails, you know that it is a place of social connection. So I think everything about this project kind of screams good community, and I'm really excited to see that happening. The other thing is that as I age and have recently retired from school nursing, the tax impact has definitely increased through my time here in Derry, to where I'm paying a lot of taxes on my house. And I am looking to downsize, but I really want to stay in my community. And my daughter, who is developmentally delayed, is very connected with the police and fire departments here, and sees this as a safe community. And I want to be able to stay here. My grandchildren live here. I want to be able to celebrate this community with them. I've chosen to live here for 30 years, and I want to stay. And I'd love to be able to have that potential place to move into that I would be able to downsize and still be able to celebrate my community. So this project's been on the books for 5 years. I'd really like to see it move forward. We're kind of behind the 8 ball from Salem and Londonderry, and they've had great success with their projects and community building. And so for that reason, I'd like to see it move forward. I'm thankful that you went to the school district and kind of looked at all the impacts. The other thing is the taxes in this town are huge. We need to have businesses come in to kind of lower the tax burden on those of us who are getting older. The older people want to stay. We don't want to have to move out. And so I hope to see this project to completion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name is William Nevius. I'm not going to repeat what's already been said. That would be a waste of everybody's time. So I do have a prepared statement, but I'm going to put it away and just talk to you from my heart. I've been very fortunate over the past 22 years when I moved here to have the good fortune to spend professional and personal time with Tim and Sharon Butterfield. Let me explain what I'm talking about. 22 years ago, when I decided that right after 9/11 that I was going to move my family someplace, I was a college president at the time, and I decided after 9/11 that I wanted my family to be someplace where quality of life was number one. I had 2 young boys, 4 and 7 at the time. And quick sidebar, I'm a 100% disabled vet, and right during the pandemic, I lost my left kidney to Agent Orange, and told my family it was time for us to take a look at life where our boys could live a quality life. And so we spent 6 months to take a look at various places around the country. And at that time, very long story short, I had 5 opportunities to go elsewhere with my young family. And guess where we picked? Even though it wasn't the best opportunity, we picked Derry, New Hampshire. We picked New Hampshire, and number one reason, actually 2 reasons, 2 young boys, and I looked at all the region around. Unfortunately, my wife couldn't come with me the first trip here. And so I looked at every town, I looked at every school district, And guess what? I said, Derry School District, Pinkerton Academy, that's where our boys were going to go. And guess what? In 2001, I think I found 3 houses for sale in Londonderry and Derry. And I narrowed it down to 2, one in Londonderry, one in Derry. It was Christmas time. I'm driving down the main drag in Derry, seeing the Christmas lights. I called my wife. I said, we're going to find a house in Derry, even if there's nothing for sale. And that's exactly what we did. So for 22 years now, I've been paying my taxes here in Derry. Yes, they're high. But guess what? If I had to do it all over again, I would do it again because of the school system and Pinkerton Academy. Now, on the professional side, I've also had the good fortune to be on the Board of Trustees at Pinkerton Academy now. This is my 20th year. I've been the president for the last 7 years, and in that capacity, I've had a chance to look and watch Tim Butterfield and what he does for this community every day, every night, always putting Derry and this community first. And so from the standpoint of looking at this project, I happen to fall in the category. I had like 7 bullets I wanted to point out, but I'm going to concentrate on the one that I just talked to my wife before I came in. She says, makes it very clear that our boys now are gone from the house, and we live in a house that's just too big for us. But even the thought of maybe selling that house, where am I going to go? That we said, we want to stay in Derry, but I have no place to go. In the last 2 months, I've had 5 people offer me a good amount of money from my house and said, where am I going to go? Guess what? This gives me an opportunity, and I talked to my wife right before I came in here. She says, we want to maybe move into this complex because that's exactly what we need at this time in our life. So I'm here to support this 100%, not only as a taxpayer in Derry, but also because of my passion for the education that we have in this town. We've got to make sure we bring that extra revenue in, get our taxes down, so we can continue having the best school system in the state, in my opinion. And that includes the Derry school system, and of course, I'm a little biased here, also includes Pinkerton Academy. So I'm in full support. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to have a voice in making this thing happen. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your service.
We have anyone online currently?
Seeing none rise, Mr. Chair.
All right, anyone else in the room have comments or questions? All right, so what we normally do is we leave the public hearing open. We have board questions, and then when we start taking votes, we will close the public hearing. So we'll give you a couple more minutes if you come up with questions. Before we get into the voting on the waivers, does any board member have comments or questions?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Healy?
Yeah, I just have just a quick question on the parking. I agree there's plenty of parking there. Do you know if there's going to be any restrictions on if there's permit parking only? Because that would kind of limit, if you're saying, well, there's plenty of parking because some people might not be there at certain times, but if it's limited to, at the apartment complex or the residential, if they get reserved spots that could only be used for that, is that?
Yeah, Shane helped me out on that one, and I'm glad he did, because I wasn't thinking of the podium garage underneath the large building. That would be reserved for that building. And the townhouse parking is kind of distinguishable and separate. Actually, there's about 4 spaces per unit there. There's 2 in the driveway and 2 in the garage. But the rest of it would be common parking for the commercial and the residential space.
Okay, with that, I think I'd be okay with that waiver then. Thank you.
Mr. O'Connor?
On many of the demolition documents, it talks about stone walls to be removed. Do you have any plans of what you're going to do with those stones, or is it just something when you get to it?
I'm going to defer that one to Shane.
So typically, a lot of towns have requirements that the stone walls need to be used on site for landscaping. In this case, that would be what we would like to do, is try to use those stone walls on site. Also, I think if you're on the site walk, you remember some of this boundary that's created around the property is stone walls. So those will probably, for the most part, be maintained. So they'll still be, the property lines still be maintained.
Well,
There
not-
was some,
Not for the most part. State law does not allow you to take down a stone wall that is a property line, right?
oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And any of the interior walls would be our choice to try to build them into the landscaping.
Other questions from the board? Mr. LaRue?
I just wanted to clarify a comment regarding escrow earlier. Obviously, this is phased, I think more towards the building aspect of things, just because of the fiscal impact of building a building. Typically, what we've been seeing, at least on the first development on Rockingham Road that you've seen underway, we have escrowed the site work. The site work isn't all the earth-moving activities. It's a portion of utilities and some top course pavement, things like that. So it's not a all-encompassing escrow. So what I would see in this particular instance is that we would probably, and I think the developer would want to do that, is escrow the entire project and then phase out the building development according to this or similar layout. That's what I believe we had that discussion, but.
Okay, thank you. That clarification. Any other questions from the board before we close the hearing and go on to voting on waivers?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
can I just make a request? I know at the last meeting, we had a letter that we received from one of the abutters. Could we just include that as part of the minutes so that it goes
would
into the
someone
record?
make a motion to include that letter in its entirety in the written minutes and waive reading it at the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded by Grenice and seconded by Malaby. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay?
Thank you.
We will include that in the record. So maybe a motion to close the public hearing?
Mr. Chair. Second.
So moved by O'Connor, seconded by Malaby to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Public hearing is closed. Let's now move back to the discussion of waivers. And I think the plan is to try to deal with them one at a time.
All right. Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to grant a waiver from LDCR Section 170-63C4 to allow 12 fewer parking spaces than required, as the parking demand for the uses will overlap the 316 spaces, will not be required to use all at the same time, and 304 spaces is sufficient to handle the parking needs of the site. After review of the waiver request, the board finds a strict conformity to the regulations would pose an unnecessary hardship to the applicant, and the waiver would not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulations.
Moved by Mr. Malaby,
Second.
seconded by
Mr. Finer.
Mr. Finer. I was looking the other way. Any discussion on this one before I poll the board? Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer?
Yes.
Mr. Malaby?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Mr. Chair, I move to grant a waiver from ZO Section 165-32.4.1.2A and LDCR Section 170-62A5 to not provide sidewalks along road frontage, as there is no adequate shoulder along the frontage to construct sidewalks without imposing a safety hazard. After review of the waiver request, the board finds the specific circumstances relative to the plan or conditions of the land in such plan indicate that the waiver will properly carry out the spirit and intent of the regulations.
Moved by Malaby, seconded by Grenice. Is there any discussion on them?
Just one quick question. This refers to the Route 28 for the sidewalk, is that my understanding?
It does to Route 28 and in theory to sections of Humphrey Road.
Okay.
At the site walk, we discussed that and determined that it would be a short section of sidewalk, and someone said, "A sidewalk to nowhere," I think was the quote used. So in the absence of a plan to continue it, it was perhaps reasonable to waive it. And we also noted that we have the bike path providing potential future connectivity to the Dole Park Valve. So,
Understood. Thank you, sir.
any other questions or discussion? Okay, I'll poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer?
Yes.
Mr. Malamy?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Mr. Chair, I move to grant a waiver from ZO Section 165, 32.4.1 C to not provide public space outside the retail area as the nature of the site itself encourages community interaction, which is a stated goal of this regulation. After review of the waiver request, the board finds that the strict conformity of the regulations would pose an unnecessary hardship to the applicant, and the waiver would not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulations.
Okay, moved by Mr. Malamy,
Second.
seconded by Mr. O'Connor. Is there questions or discussions on this one? Hearing none, I will poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer?
Yes.
Mr. Malamy?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
All right, Mr. Chair, I move to grant a waiver from LDCR Section 170-67B1 to allow solid waste storage closer than 25 feet to the property line, as space and drainage constraints require 2 dumpsters to be placed at 21 feet from the property line. After review of the waiver request, the board finds that specific circumstances relative to the plan or conditions of the land in such plan indicate that the waiver will properly carry out the spirit and intent of the regulations.
Okay, moved by Mr. Malamy,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Healy. Is there any questions or discussions on this one? Hearing none, I will poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer?
Yes.
Mr. Malamy?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
All right, Mr. Chair, I move to grant a waiver from LDCR Section 170-63A2 to allow parking spaces closer than 15 feet to the front property line due to space and drainage constraints. After review of the waiver request, the board finds that specific circumstances relative to the plan or conditions of the land in such plan indicate that the waiver will properly carry out the spirit and intent of the regulations.
Moved by Mr. Malamy,
Second.
seconded by Mr. O'Connor. Is there any questions or discussions on this one? Hearing none, I will poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer?
Yes.
Mr. Malamy?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Mr. Chair, I move to grant a waiver from LDCR Section 170-62.B.2 to allow driveways closer than 15 feet to the front property lines due to space and drainage constraints. Is this the same? Oh, no, this is B2, excuse me. After review of the waiver request, the board finds that specific circumstances relative to the plan or conditions of the land in such plan indicate that the waiver will properly carry out the spirit and intent of the regulations.
Moved by
Second.
Mr. Malamy, seconded by Mr. O'Connor. Is there any questions? I will poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer?
Yes.
Mr. Malamy?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Mr. Chair, I move to grant a waiver from LDCR Section 170-65J to allow 2.15 feet of cover over the drainage pipe connecting PCB1 to PCB2, and 2.8 feet of cover over the drainage pipe connecting PCB41 to PDMH18, where 3 feet is required. The 2 pipes are proposed to be reinforced concrete pipes and will meet the intent of the regulation. After review of the waiver request, the board finds that strict conformity of the regulations would pose an unnecessary hardship to the applicant, and the waiver would not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulations.
Moved by Mr. Malamy,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Feinauer. Mr. Lewis, do you have any comments on this one?
No comment.
Any other questions? If not, I will poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer?
Yes.
Mr. Malamy?
Yep.
And chair votes yes.
Commingling.
We'll need to separate you guys.
I move, Mr. Chair, I move to grant a waiver from LDCR Section 170-26.B.3 to allow a minimum tangent length of less than 100 feet before reverse curves, as adhering to the 100-foot tangent length would force Humphrey Road to encroach into the northern parcel. After review of the waiver request, the board finds that specific circumstances relative to the plan or conditions of the land in such plan indicate that the waiver will properly carry out the spirit and intent of the regulations.
Moved by Mr. Malamy,
Second.
seconded by Mr. O'Connor. Is there any questions? Not,
LaRue's comment on it?
We tried to get it as close to 100 as we could, and we just couldn't make it fit with the existing conditions.
yeah, this was called out during the site walk, and we did look at the issue, and it did seem they did the best they could.
Okay.
I believe it was, I'm going to butcher the last name, but Frank Kozalka had actually said it's not the worst thing in the world because it would force traffic to slow down a bit going around the curve, so.
Are we ready for the vote? I will poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer?
Yes.
Mr. Malaby?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Mr. Chair, I move to grant a waiver from LDCR Section 170-26C1 to allow a minimum street grade of less than 1% where the regulations require a grade of less than 1.5%, as the applicant is trying to better align with the existing Humphrey Road profile and to ensure acceptable grades for the driveway. Adhering to the standard 1.5% grade would add vertical curves, which is neither ideal nor desirable. After review of the waiver request, the board finds that the specific circumstances relative to the plan or conditions of the land in such plan indicate that the waiver will properly carry out the spirit and intent of the regulations.
Moved by Mr. Malaby,
Second.
seconded by Mr. O'Connor. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, I will poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer?
Yes.
Mr. Malaby?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Mr. Chair, last but not least, I move to grant a waiver from LDCR Section 170-65L to not require the bottom of the proposed infiltration system be a minimum of 2 feet above the seasonal high water table, as the site characteristics preclude the ability to meet the regulation in maintaining 1 foot of separation meets the NHDES AOT requirement. After review of the waiver request, the board finds that the specific circumstances relative to the plan or conditions of the land in such plan indicate that the waiver will properly carry out the spirit and intent of the regulations.
Moved by Mr. Malaby,
Second.
seconded by Mr. O'Connor. Any comments or questions? I will poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer?
Yes.
Mr. Malaby?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. You're on a roll, so.
On a
keep
roll,
going.
why not? Mr. Chair, I move to find that pursuant to LDCR 170-85, that the application as presented demonstrates substantial compliance with the architectural design regulations. This property is located in the West Running Brook zoning district and meets a high level of compliance as outlined in Section 170-84.
Moved by Mr. Malaby,
Second.
seconded by Mr. O'Connor. Is there any question? None, I'll poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer?
Yes.
Mr. Malaby?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. What is the board's pleasure with respect to the findings of fact? They're fairly extensive, and if we were to vote on every paragraph, we'll be here quite late. So does anyone have exception to any of the proposed findings of fact that you would like to take out and vote on separately?
And I would, Mr. Chair, then I would move to accept them as written if nobody else has any comments.
Okay,
Second.
not hearing any objection, Mr. O'Connor has moved to accept the findings of fact as printed. We should probably have someone read it for the record.
You want?
I just took a big swig of water. I'm all
I'll
right.
do it.
No, no.
Saves
Oh,
my voice.
and who's the second?
Oh, I'd second.
All right. So O'Connor and Malaby on the second, and Mr. Grenice will do yeoman's service and read the findings of fact.
All right. The board finds the proposed plan provides safe and efficient vehicular and pedestrian access, and the design and construction of the access ways and walkways are adequate to accommodate the anticipated volume of traffic proposed by the development. The board finds the proposed parking plan is adequate for the site and meets the parking density requirements for the use as noted by the waiver approved this evening. The board finds the landscape plan meets the intent of the regulations. The board finds the stormwater management as proposed is designated to control the post-development runoff so that it does not exceed pre-development runoff. The board finds utility construction standards are met and properly in the property has a sufficient number of hydrants for the proposed use. The board finds exterior lighting, solid waste storage, and snow storage provisions and erosion and sediment control provisions are adequate, or a waiver has been approved by the board where the requirements for solid waste storage could not be met. The board finds that the plan meets the dimensional requirements of the West Running Brook District in that the frontage exceeds 50 feet, the front side rear setbacks are at a minimum of 10 feet, and no proposed structure is closer than 30 feet of a structure located on an adjacent lot. The board finds proposed height of the buildings is not excessive, meets the intent of the district, and maintains the character of the district. The board finds there is more than 1/3 of the buildable area reserved as green space, and the plan provides a sufficient buffer to protect existing residential uses based on the proposed landscape plan and the manner in which the buildings are situated. Pursuant to the information provided in the Edward H. Herbert Associates, Inc. memorandum to the board dated August 29th, 2024, relevant to the Town of Derry zoning ordinance, section 165-32.4.e, the board finds proposed development is appropriate for the area in that, 1, the development does not overwhelm pre-existing development near the proposed site. 2, environmental resources are not detrimental impacted by the development. 3, the project is consistent with the master plan. 4, the plan is consistent with the architectural design regulations specific to the West Running Brook District. And 5, there is no other relevant factors that would affect the health, safety, welfare of the town residents. The board finds that 111 residential units, 72 apartments, and 39 townhomes are appropriate for the development, given its proximity to the pre-existing residential areas. The board finds the proposed density is not less than what would be allowed by a conventional subdivision in the low-density residential area zone, 1 lot per 3 acres, where this lot contains 14.72 acres, and the density bonus has not been requested. The board finds the overall design of the project is cited to best preserve natural vistas and takes advantage of the existing topography. The board finds the structures on the lot are interconnected with internal sidewalks, and the layout suits the existing topography and natural features found on the site so as to minimize the cuts and fills throughout the site. The board finds the opportunity for pedestrian connections throughout the internal lot and the opportunity to connect to adjacent lots have been provided. The board finds a plan meets the intent of the streetscape requirements with regard to trees, buffered areas, public spaces, and the residents and lighting. The board finds that the estimated future cost to widen Island Pond Route 28 intersection is $1,750,000, and this project will have a 2% impact on the overall intersection capacity based on the Hoyle, Tanner, and Associates traffic study of the West Running Brook corridor, and information provided in this traffic report prepared by the applicant's traffic engineer.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Grenice. I will now poll the board on that. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer?
Yes.
Mr. Malaby?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. On the matter of approval, what is the board's pleasure?
Mr. Chair, after,
Thank you. You can do it.
really? Oh, sorry.
Doing
2
well.
pages.
Mr. Chair, after review and deliberation of the mixed-use site plan application for PIDs 05062, 05063, 05064, and 05065-001, the board finds the applicant has satisfied the general requirements of the West Running Brook District and the Land Development Control Regulations, or in cases where the regulation cannot be met, has satisfied the waiver requirements. Therefore, the motion is to approve a conditional use permit pursuant to the Town of Derry zoning ordinance, section 165-32.4F, RSA 674:21, Roman 2, and RSA 676:4, Roman 1, completed application with the following conditions. Comply with the Wright and Pierce review letters dated August 28th, 2024, or subsequent, subject to owner's signature. Addresses staff comments contained in the engineering coordinator's email dated August 22nd, 2024. Voluntary mergers are filed, approved by the board, and recorded for the north and south lots. Submit an 11/17 plot plan showing the new lots, addresses as assigned by fire prevention, and the new parcel ID numbers as assigned by the assessing department, signed off by both departments. Subject to on-site inspection by the town's engineer. Establish escrow for the setting of bounds, or certify the bounds have been set. Establish appropriate escrow as required to complete the project. Note approved waivers on the plan. Obtain written approval from the planning director designee that the GIS disk is received and is operable, and it complies with LDCR section 170-61C. Subject to receipt of applicable state or local permits relating to the project, NHDOT driveway permit, Town and Derry driveway permit, and in the DES sewer connection permit. Change of use applications for the business tenants will be required to be filed with the planning department. Signs for the project shall require administrative review by the planning board and shall comply with the Town of Derry zoning ordinance, section 165-101.12. Pursuant to RSA 673:21, Roman 5, the applicant shall provide a fair share contribution toward future signal improvements at the Webster's Corner intersection. The fair share contribution to be held in escrow shall be $35,000. Pursuant to RSA 673:21, Roman 5E, the funds shall be returned if not utilized within 6 years of the date the escrow is established. Pursuant to the overall phasing plan noted on sheet 86 of the plan most recently revised July 30th, 2024, the applicant will follow the phasing plan as proposed, and the non-residential portions of the project will be constructed before the residential portions of the project or concurrently. Warehousing space will need to be limited to 5,000 square feet per the zoning ordinance and may not be used for self-storage. Subsequent to the completion of the Humphrey Road modifications, the new alignment will be presented to the Derry Town Council for acceptance. Final bike path expansion plan shall be reviewed and approved by the DPW Director in consultation with the Derry School District SAU 10. Fence along the property line between WRBIS and the development site shall be replaced upon completion of the bike path improvements. Proposed loading areas will be noted on the plan. Note GATA Corporation, or current owner of 2 Island Pond Road, as the abutter to the south of the southern lot. Conditions precedent shall be met within 6 months. Drainage easement documents shall be reviewed by the Town of Derry Legal Counsel. Cost of that review to be borne by the applicant, and the easements shall be recorded at the Registry of Deeds and noted on the plan.
Mr. Chairman, I will second that, as long as that the conditions precedent will be met 12 months, not 6.
So 12 months, and then I think Liz had another condition related to the Town of Derry water tie-in.
Yes.
Yeah.
If we could note that the water and sewer connection fees will apply per the 2011 water and sewer bond resolutions by Town Council.
Okay, so we'll add that as a condition. So moved by Mr. Malaby, seconded by Mr. Grenice. Any questions or discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I just have one question. I just want to make sure, Mr. LaRue, we covered everything with Public Works?
I believe so.
Thank you.
Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Before I vote on this, I just want to say that I'm going to vote yes, by the way, but I'm glad that this is like 5 years in the making, and if this development passes, it's going to be very nice and used for Derry. So my vote is yes.
I'm going to be voting yes also, but as one of the earlier readings, where the architect was talking about being substantial, I think it's more substantial. As long as you build it the way you show it on here, it is phenomenal. Well done.
Great, thank you, Mr. O'Connor. Mr. Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer?
Yes.
Mr. Malaby?
Yes, and congratulations.
Yes, and the chair will vote yes, and congratulations. It was a long path, and
Thank you so
I
much.
wish you luck with your financing and your purchasers, and hopefully it all comes to fruition for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Did the feds drop the points today? They're supposed to go maybe. They did.
All right. Having reached the end of our published agenda, it is time for board member comments. Does anyone have board member comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to remind everybody, Saturday is Derry Fest downtown. It's going to be, weather's going to be beautiful. It's 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Great. Thank you. So, thank you, congratulations. Thank you, congratulations. Can I fish for a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Grenice to adjourn,
Congratulations.
seconded by O'Connor. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Oh, I was just going to say, you just...